hi there. Okay.
This is gonna be fun.
Is this on? Here we are.
Here we are,
Episode 1.
episode 1. Are you still a CBC employee? I'm not. I'm confused today.
Well, welcome to Can't Be Censored, everybody. That's a great question, Karman Wong, and it's so nice to see you. You know what, I actually my feelings on this, and I mean this has been publicized everywhere. I saw something in the UK the other day that I had resigned. I didn't want to resign, but I resigned. But the CBC maintains, last time I read in the papers, that they're not accepting the resignation, that I'm still a unionized employee. So I guess that's where it stands right now. We have a difference of opinions.
And you resigned in kind of a spectacular way. You sent an email, an all-staff email, to however hundreds of thousands of employees are at the CBC, and that's what got the attention of most folks.
Yeah, and I think, let me just say as well, like, can't be censored, but there's a bit of anxiety that I have right now even talking about this because of the process that I have gone through over the past year plus. And so there's a bit of a fear factor right now even talking. I mean, I feel like I need to, because this is not just about me. And we'll talk about kind of the larger implications of this, but I do feel like, a bit scared right now going out there because they're a giant entity and they have teams and teams of lawyers. So,
Should I be scared?
I mean, so if there are things that are actually censored in this episode, just realize it's because I'd like to keep my home.
Yeah.
Because the stakes are pretty real for me right now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I sent that email. I mean, that was a long time coming. I had tried for a very long time, and we'll get into the background and the context of all of this to deal with some of these issues that I thought were kind of really fundamental to how I did my job and how journalists do their job. But you can't talk to somebody who isn't listening to you. So ultimately, I said this is not a situation that is tenable. I thought I was going to retire there. I wanted to, but the situation just became so hostile, and I wasn't able to actually do what I came to do, which is actually journalism.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into all of that. We're gonna try to focus it in on some of the really core issues, the problematic issues that you experienced at the CBC. So broadly speaking, it's gonna be about diversity, or failed DEI, unfortunately, respect for taxpayer dollars, political balance, the work culture at CBC, and finally, what's important here is what's next and what does this all mean. So let's just very, very briefly tell people a bit about who you are, how you got into journalism.
Right. So, I actually have an email here that I sent on the first night of Canada Tonight, which sums things up pretty well. I sent this note the night before we went to air, and we'll talk about Canada Tonight in a little bit, but this is kind of basically where I came from, right? I'm sending you all this note in advance of tomorrow as we embark on this next chapter of Canada Tonight, and forgive me in advance for the sappiness. I came to Toronto from Calgary in 2000 as a shy teenager with braces, headed off to radio and television arts school with a goal and a dream to one day be a national TV host. After graduating, I sent VHS tapes. Kids remember those? They don't remember what VHS tapes are. To every single TV station in the country, and I got rejected by all but one. The goal I had as a 17-year-old faded through the years in local market after local market, when news directors told me I couldn't make it or that they had a brown guy already. Well, now, decades later, it's happening. I know that change can be difficult, but I know this is going to be hard work as we adjust to new workflows and a new format. But I also know that we can do great things with this platform. My name might be on the graphic, but make no mistake, this program is ours. Working together, we can make this manageable and a success. In the daily grind, and I think this is really important, in the daily grind, I do not want us to lose sight of this incredible opportunity to expand the conversation that's happening in this country at a critical time, to reflect all perspectives and to provide Canadians with engaging conversations while also telling them what's happening in their community and world. I'm happy to get to know all of you. I'm energized by this new opportunity to make this a primetime TV marquee show and a powerhouse for the CBC and a destination for all Canadians. So that's essentially how it started, right? I came to Toronto at 17 years old. We worked together at CP24. I joke that I've worked at every network twice, but like I got into journalism because I wanted to tell stories.
And, I gather from that email, and maybe people can't sense this, but when you're a journalist, to get your own primetime show with your name and to develop that is a huge deal. And you went into this, like, I remember, so excited, open-minded. You thought it was, it was going to be special.
Well, I mean, that's what they kind of built it up to be. From my recollection, and since we have the disclaimer, everything is going to be as I recall. But as I recall, during this interview process and when they called me to flag that this was an opportunity that they wanted me to pursue, that was the conversation that we had, right? I was doing Marketplace, which for folks outside of this country is a consumer program. It's the #1 consumer program in the country. We do really interesting stories where, we're getting accountability for folks in terms of, businesses where they get screwed and stuff like that. So I was doing that, and then this presented itself, and I was like, okay, well, that sounds good. I'm going to have my own show with my face and name on it, 7 to 9 p.m. across the country. I'm going to get to shape that program, because that's the thing. You would think if your face and your name are on a show, then you'd have a certain level of input into the show. And yeah, things are a collaboration, but ultimately, like, if it's your face and your name, you want to have some substantial input.
So I want to take you to even before Marketplace.
Yeah.
Because you rejoined the CBC, and this is all we're getting to this because it's going to speak to the work culture at CBC.
Thank you.
That you experienced at Canada Tonight, but starting from when you rejoined the CBC.
Right,
so you rejoined the CBC as a national news reporter.
So, and this is the thing as well. Like, I want to back up even further. When I was talking about 17 years old, some people I've read online, because I do read the comments. Thank you. And by the way, I should have started all of this.
Do not read comments.
I should have started all of this by saying thank you to everyone who has supported me. This has been a very difficult process, and I read those messages. So anyway, I'm going to get emotional during this fucking episode.
That's okay. Let it all out.
But, like, this is the thing. I read some comments where people are like, oh, this guy was like a plant or something like that.
Yeah.
He wanted to burn down the CBC.
Yeah.
One of my first jobs was on Jonavision, if people remember that show, right? Like, that was like in between The Simpsons and Jeopardy. Like, I worked on The Air Farce. I worked on all of these shows. Like, my dream was to one day work at the national broadcaster. And I did when I was at school. And then I went off to Global, and I did Entertainment Tonight and all these different things. And then I came back to CBC. I worked in Edmonton. We worked together at CP24. I was on at Queen's Park for Global. I was running around after Doug Ford, where everybody thought I was a liberal because I was barking at the premier during through, some interesting times at Queen's Park. But then I didn't reach out to them. They reached out to me. They said, hey, do you want to come on over to the CBC? And we went back and forth, and I didn't necessarily want to move my life to Ottawa, but they said this is going to be a great opportunity for you, right? They said that this is going to be a great platform for you to basically Sorry, my phone's ringing. There's going to be a great platform for you to grow the Travis Dhanraj brand, and it was a good gig. I thought it was a good gig, and I also thought that I would get certain opportunities when I went to the Ottawa bureau, which is what we're going to talk about, which actually didn't materialize in the way that I thought.
All right, you're at the Ottawa Bureau. This is the preeminent bureau
Yeah.
in Canada. It means you cover the Prime Minister, you
fly
cover
around with the
Parliament
Prime
Hill.
Minister. Yeah.
It's a big job.
Yeah.
You get there, again, you're excited, open heart, open mind.
I tore up my life in Toronto,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
Like I got a place in Ottawa. This was not like a short-term thing. I was thinking I'm moving my life to Ottawa, right? I'm going to plant roots here. This is going to be a long-term thing. And the gig was good. The environment was, boy oh boy, from my perspective, does that bureau have some major fucking issues.
Okay, let's just hear about some of them.
Well, I mean, the concentration of power, from my perspective, in that opinion, is held in very few hands. And I'm talking very few, like 3 or 4 hands. And that's problematic, right? I also think that there is, there's not oversight from management in terms of some of the personalities in that bureau to ensure that things are balanced in terms of the weight of what everyone. And I talked about how yes, of course, if you have a show, like that should count for a substantial amount, right? But also, you have to take everybody's opinion into perspective, right? And I just think that there are certain folks in that bureau that what they say, like it's like the word of God.
Okay, so to crystallize what you're saying, power was in the hands of a disproportionate few, very few people. Those people
when it came to the political coverage of the network, and that's very important for the public broadcaster, right? Like, I mean, is there George Stephanopoulos? Does he have some say on ABC News in terms of like what the political coverage is? For sure. Like at CTV, at Global, yes, absolutely. However, and this is kind of one of the cores that we're going to go back to, those are private entities. This is a public institution. And so you need to make sure that you have balance when it comes to the political coverage especially. I mean, everything, but political coverage is key. And so when you have this concentration of power, I didn't think that was happening all the time in terms of my perspective on things.
And those few people made life very difficult.
The
for many
knives were
people,
out. Yeah,
not just
the knives were out for me when I came there. And I'll say this, that there are a number of people in that bureau, and they know who they are, that were fantastic to me, right? That actually were wonderful and very friendly to me. But I did feel very isolated because, the folks that kind of ran the place weren't happy that I was there. They're like, who is this kid coming in from, my perspective is, who is this kid coming in from Toronto? I was supposed to backfill on the major political show. That didn't happen until I actually left Ottawa and came back to Toronto for Marketplace. And then I filled in. But like, yeah, no, it was a hostile environment. That is to be sure. And there were several incidents where like that happened.
And we're going to talk about one of those incidents because we came with receipts.
Lots of receipts.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean,
that's the thing as well about all of this. Can I just say, like, I'm a trained investigative journalist. On Marketplace, I did undercover hidden camera investigations. Like, I'm not going to say something if I don't have the fucking receipts to back it up, right? So yeah, we do.
Okay. We're just going to we're going to stick to this topic and move on. We're going to stick to workplace culture and toxicity. Sure. So tell us about one instance that sticks out in your mind, and we've got something to play to show it.
Yeah, so this was I had left Ottawa at that point. I was back in Toronto. I was doing Marketplace. I was doing some stuff on the National, and sometimes they'll call you and they'll say this has happened. Something happened in Newfoundland. You guys probably all remember the Titan implosion. So they called me. They're like, you need to get on a flight and go to St. John's. I had a friend's funeral in Calgary. Like a very dear friend of mine had passed away from a brain tumor. And because like I was married to work, I didn't go. And this is a huge regret of mine. I didn't go to that funeral. I went on the assignment. And so anyway, I'm there. Things are going fine. But the toxicity from Ottawa followed me all the way to Newfoundland, right? Because there was a certain level of one particular host wanting a lot of say in terms of the how the story and the show and guests and all that stuff. And there was one guest that I had on that another host wanted to have on their program, and like it was on the program. This guy was doing interviews with everybody, right? And this is kind of just like a guy who knew somebody who was on the sub. So I did like a 20-second clip with this guy, and then I was accused of stealing the guest, even though this guy was all over Fox News and CNN and CBC shows as well. So it kind of became this very tense situation where even though I'm in Newfoundland, I'm hearing all of this stuff being said about me in Ottawa.
Yeah, and so when you approached your bosses about how that was handled, instead of dealing with it,
So, well, I was supposed to do a national special, like shortly thereafter. And I was like, I don't want to do this because I don't want to be around this particular individual because I, like, they were just basically talking shit about me and disparaging me. And I don't want to work with this person right now. I was supposed to fill in, like, this is like months later, on that program, go back to Ottawa and fill in on the program that I was supposed to fill in on when I was actually there. Now was finally getting to do it. That was an opportunity that was locked in. All of a sudden, this incident happens, and I get a call basically saying, we're going to pull you off the show. We'll do it again sometime. Don't worry, we'll do it again sometime. But And I was like, well, why? Like, this is clearly about
Clearly
this
it's linked to that
situation. And they
interaction.
said, yeah,
Yeah.
it's about this situation. They
Yeah.
can't, the team can't get over it. Well, I
Wow.
mean, we know why the
That's
team
pretty
can't get
petty.
over it. It is pretty petty. It's
Yeah.
like, schoolyard bullies. So the clip that we're going to listen to right now is management calling me and basically saying, we're taking you off the show, which I eventually did, by the way, and me pushing back. So let's take a listen to that. Have you replaced me with somebody?
Travis, let me ask you.
Yes.
Do you want to do the show under some kind of threat that you're claiming this is retaliation? Like, is that
No, but it's the principle of the matter at the end of the day. It's not the backfill week. It's the fact that you guys are now saying that you're pushing me off the show because and company can't get over something that happened a month ago. And I'm saying, put on your big boy pants. We're all professionals. This happened. Was screaming and ranting and raving about me, and I heard that from everybody in the newsroom, from on the other side of the newsroom, from people outside of CBC. That is wildly unprofessional. That's like a workplace harassment complaint if I wanted to be an asshole about the situation, frankly. And now you're saying I can't backfill on the show because the team is not able to get over this? Well, there are larger issues at play here, and the fact that you guys both can't see that is very concerning, and I'm sure would be concerning to other folks as well. So
I can see how that you could cast it that way. We're trying to reach a kind of a agreement.
we're not going to reach an amicable agreement if your decision is to boot me from the show that week.
Okay, so you would like to do that. You would like to do the show that week under these conditions.
Yeah.
Why don't and I discuss?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so basically they're like, we'll discuss. And I was in Calgary. I was at my parents' house when I'm having this call. And I'm like, what bullshit is this? You're calling me to yank me from the show now?
Yeah.
Because somebody had a diva fit? and I'm like, no. So anyway, they called me back and like, okay, yeah, you can do the show. But that's the thing. That was the threat. That, again, an attempt to like bully me, right?
Yeah.
Fall in line.
Okay, so I mean, we could probably sit here all day and you probably have a number of examples. That was one that we put out there. This is going to be a recurring theme throughout our discussion,
And I will also say this, also because my brain is, again, like having anxiety. I'm sure the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation has a different interpretation of all of these events. That is their right. They can, have that interpretation, but this is my perspective, and this is how I recall these events happening.
Okay, fair. I want to move into something else we're going to talk about, which is editorial independence, right? So now we're going to shift into Canada Tonight territory.
Yeah.
This is your show. And
My show.
Right. So, like, sort of frame this discussion for us. Like,
Right.
why is editorial independence important here?
It's very important because I think that if you don't have, this is the thing about newsrooms, right? And I've watched this, and you have watched this as well happen. And I mean, yeah, we're talking about CBC, but I think that this is an issue in general. Sometimes what happens is that if you don't have different hosts and different producers and different members of the team that bring different perspectives to the table, and you're able to have a conversation editorially where there's a range of perspectives, you can't really get to the nugget in terms of what you need to be covering and how you need to be covering it, and making sure that you have all perspectives covered. And so what I think happens sometimes is that there is this group think mentality. Like Tara Henley, who was previously at the CBC, brought this issue up as well. It's one of the reasons that she left. I'm bringing it up years later. I know that there are other people behind the scenes who haven't come out publicly that have thought this as well. But that's why editorial independence is key, to have that within newsrooms and to have that amongst hosts as well. Like, my show is going to be very different than somebody else, or I thought would be very different than somebody else's on the network. And that's why I thought I was hired, for my perspective and my view. I mean, it says that in the press release that they put out, right? That I would be shaping things, and it would be, I would have a certain level of editorial independence here. That was not the case.
Okay, so let's talk about two instances of this. The first was with a segment that you had developed. It was called the Intersection
Yes, which
Panel,
you were on, by the way.
which I was on. A number of people were on. We would go on a panel, people with diverse views, and we would kind of talk about the issues. And it was never yelling and screaming. It was always respectful conversation.
Sometimes it was yelling and screaming, but like, listen, the concept with this entire show is to not turn it into some left-leaning program, to not turn it into some right-leaning program, to represent all views of Canadians, to have balance. And so that's why when, in the development phase, when we were pitching it, and I had to fight hard for this segment, I thought that we should have a nightly panel where we were talking about the issues of the day, having the conversations that Canadians are having with different people, and sometimes diametrically opposed people. I had Brian Lilly on with like Sheila Copps. I had like Sean Spicer and somebody on the left, right? So it was like I had a range of voices, and they weren't all just from one perspective. And so I thought that segment was really key because we were doing it in like a really kind of organic, real way. It wasn't shades of gray where like you kind of disagree with me a little bit. Like, people were opposed, but I think what it showed is that, yeah, people could have these very passionate opinions, but we could have a civil discourse. And at the end of the day, and sometimes a robust civil discourse, but at the end of the day, we hear everybody out and we move on.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything quite like it.
Yeah, and I was told by management at one point, well, we feel like the conversations are sophomoric. And my perspective on that is that, like, that's an intellectually elitist attitude, and also it's not that intellectual, because here's the thing. Not everybody in this country is paying attention to the minutia in terms of what is going on in the Ottawa bubble. And I think some of these panels sometimes focus too much on that as opposed to looking at things in more, you okay? You want some water?
Yes.
In more broad strokes, right? And that's what we were trying to do. But these idiots couldn't see that that's what we were attempting to do here.
And they canceled
And
it.
they canceled the panel. Yeah.
They canceled the panel.
They canceled the panel, and also money was an issue with that, which we'll talk about afterwards. When it came to, we're supposed to be a primetime show, we're supposed to have equal footing. It was approved to be they approved a panel on the show, but they didn't fund it accordingly. I mean, this is pretty deep into the weeds, but it shows you like the imbalance and how this show was set up for failure before I even started.
So the intersection panel was canceled. You had, in an effort to solicit feedback from the panelists, you email them, you say, hey, let me know what you thought about it.
Yeah.
You got in trouble for that.
I
right?
got in trouble
You
for that. I got yanked off the air for that.
Okay. Then, that wasn't the end of your troublemaking.
That was that and the Tait tweet.
So this,
Yeah.
I'm going to get to that.
Yeah.
This was a time, around this time, where executive bonuses at the CBC were under a microscope.
Yep.
And the former president of CBC, Tait,
Who I've never met, by
who
the
you've
way.
never met.
Never met.
Was
She can come on this show if she wants to.
I
Miss
doubt-
Tait, we would like to have you on Can't Be Censored.
But she was appearing before
Yeah.
a parliamentary committee.
She was, yeah.
She was supposed to be talking about this. So, like a journalist,
Because they were cutting jobs and giving people bonuses.
but as a journalist with Editorial Independence,
Yeah.
you requested an interview with her.
Yeah.
She said no. What
I
happened
didn't.
next?
I mean, I had to go through like 5 people that requested it because I basically was
Well,
afraid
the
to
show,
pick up
Canada
the phone.
Tonight
Yeah.
requested an interview.
Yeah, exactly.
She said no. What happened next?
She said no. The Chase producer that was doing it sent me a note. I was still at home, going into the studio, and I said, "Well, why?" Like they didn't give a reason, just a blanket no. So, well, that's unfortunate because it was unfortunate. So I tweeted out and it was a very innocuous tweet. I think it's been reported on. I basically said, Catherine Tait, we interviewed her. We wanted to talk about this, that, and the other. And she declined the interview. That's unfortunate. So that, paired with the fact that I wanted to get feedback from the folks that were contributing to having a diverse range of perspectives on the show and take that to management, not for them to have any say, but just to get feedback. Why wouldn't you want feedback? Those two things got me yanked off the air and put through hell. It was hell.
Okay, so we've got a clip to play. This is clip number 2 of that. What happened? What you're describing, the warning you got, and the threat of disciplinary action.
Yeah. So I think this is at the end of that whole, and this went on for days and hours and hours, a day, right? And there was one point where I broke down in one of these meetings. It was a very difficult process because I'm thinking here, I'm just doing my job. Why am I getting hauled into a meeting for doing my job, for fighting for the best product on the show, for wanting to have interviews, for wanting to hold people accountable, including the CBC? There's supposed to be some separation here. And then there was a conversation about where is Travis happening online. And so this is at the end of that process where they're basically you can't really say where you were. I said, well, why not? So let's take a listen to that. And so if I go back on television, do you want to tell the team nothing? That's the solution here?
So I'm going to use a different analogy. If somebody has been away for personal or private or confidential reasons, we don't share that with the team. And that if that person chooses not to, we don't. In this situation, I'm prevented, and so are you from sharing the details.
Well, we don't know that actually as a fact yet, but sure, that's your view of it.
So yes, and I do believe that our colleagues are respectful and mature enough to continue working with their day and not meddle in individuals' private matters.
Travis, may I ask you what you want to share or what your
Yeah, that I was taken off air for sending an email and a tweet and put through this process. And that is that's the reality of what happened. I don't want to have to be forced to lie by omission for the benefit of the CBC.
And why you're saying that for the benefit of your colleagues, but none of your colleagues are aware of this process or this conversation. So I'm not sure I'm clear on why it needs that resolution. Like, is there an issue there that we need to help you in resolving when you return on it? I'm aware of the media requests, but that includes a lot of assumptions. But when we think of it from an internal matter, is that specifically what the concern is related to? Because your colleagues don't know, I don't believe, know about the media requests. They wouldn't be going through to them.
But our colleagues, believe it or not, are actually on social media, and they're seeing various people tweeting about my whereabouts and memes of me being dragged into a van with black windows, and people saying that I've been Taited and I'm at re-education camp, and that I've been sent to Nunavut to be the weather host, and that they're going to start putting my face on milk cartons, and that I need to send a flare-up if I need help, and on and on and on. There are hundreds of comments about what is going on with me, right? So like what you got, your solution for all of this is to say nothing. Like, I understand how that like protects CBC. I don't understand how that helps me try to start the process of repairing the irreparable harm that you have done, material harm that you have done to my reputation in 1 week.
So having dealt with these social media situations, I do advise strongly that you say nothing, because based on previous experience, no answer you give will satisfy people. And secondly, these are...
The Canadian press wouldn't be asking about this if it wasn't a story.
There are temporal things on social media, so just to finish my thought, on social media that don't actually have an impact, like a true impact on, like they're asking, but people can ask. Like people have been asking when hosts are ill and they don't answer, and people can speculate all they want. So I am only going on what has happened in the past, like where we've advised staff to, because especially for harassment, and as I hear the impact on you, silence is the guidance on this, because engaging is not going to fix or stop it. And so silence tends to end it.
Yeah, no, I need to clear my name.
But again, this is why this is personal social media, and this is why we strongly, under the guidelines, have said not to post or engage there.
So you don't think that there's been any damage to my reputation?
I think that people speculating about where somebody has been is simply speculation. So no, I don't.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I think, Travis, I hope you know, we acknowledge how challenging this process is. Mm-hmm. And that's, want you to know that we moved really quickly through this process to bring you resolution as quickly as we could. I think to us too, sometimes it's not possible to move this quickly, but this is a conversation that both you and I prioritize to get through with you this week and to get you back on air and to regular duties on Monday. Obviously, your health and safety is everyone's top priority. If you're not feeling well enough to go back on air on Monday, we've got lots of supportive ways that we can help deal with that, and that's our priority. But our intention is to get you back on air on Monday, and hopefully, if you are well enough to go back on air, that will help, shut down some of the conversation about where you are.
Yeah, and help the CBC, right?
I just want to add on the social media piece, the silence isn't, the do not engage is not to protect the CBC, it's to protect the person who's the target of things. That is the best practice that we have in such situations.
Yeah, so if the person who is the target of it is saying that they think that the best solution is to bring daylight to this situation, and you're preventing me from doing that, how is that not creating more harm to me? And thank you for the consideration of going through this process quickly, and I do feel very supported by the CBC right now. That process has been clear for the past 5 days of this.
Okay. So, okay, at this point, you'd been off the air for how long?
Felt so supported.
So you were
Wasn't I so
sincere.
supported? Thank you, guys. So supportive.
You're still feeling
It's just like when people
like
are like,
yesterday.
he's a disgruntled employee. This is about larger issues, but yeah, I'm kind of pissed off because no, I did not feel supported, right? And if this is happening, Carmen, to a national host with a prime time show, I am concerned for other folks there, right? This is why I think that they need better whistleblower protections for folks that actually will call out some of this stuff.
yeah. Okay.
But it goes to the secrecy, right?
Right. And, they pulled you off air. You're, allegedly or not about, what you had said, tweeted about, or...
Well, I didn't allegedly tweet it. I tweeted it. But I mean...
But their reason...
Allegedly, their reason was that I was editorializing by saying this is unfortunate.
Okay.
Yeah.
They wanted you to return to work. They wanted you to say nothing. They didn't want you to explain it. They didn't want to refute that. They didn't want you to say or do anything.
Yeah.
And you had a problem with that,
Yeah,
and that's what we heard.
I had a problem with that because there was this national conversation going on. And I also think what this really, if we zoom out here beyond me, what the larger issue here is and why the public should care about that whole interaction that they saw is because, to me, in my humble opinion, there was no separation going on there between the corporate interests and the operations of the newsroom. And that is key, right? You can't have senior executives that have the interests of the corporation impacting the work that journalists are doing. We should not have to be operating in like a state of fear for calling somebody out. It's our jobs to hold people accountable, right? So, I mean, that was kind of the whole issue around.
And that's kind of been the attitude of the CBC on a number of issues, right? Like, let's just be quiet and see if it passes, or let's try to keep people quiet. And we're not, I mean, this has been well reported, well documented, the use of non-disclosure agreements.
Right. It has been well reported. It's come up in, they don't call them non-disclosure agreements, these documents that they.
Whatever you want to call it, it's giving someone an incentive not to talk about a certain issue.
I think the NDP actually brought this up in committee, I think it was last year, around that same Tait time, the use of non-disclosure agreements. And I find that fact very problematic, that these documents, whatever you want to call them, gag orders, whatever, memos of understanding, are being used to silence employees who might be on the inside that have really legitimate concerns, right? I mean, I think the BBC went through this, and folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but they had to scrap this practice as well. It's different, again, it's different if this is a private company. I mean, that's still problematic, but I mean, if Fox News has NDAs, Fox News has NDAs, News Corp owns them, right? The Canadian public owns the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
And should err on the side of transparency.
And should err on the side of transparency. I think that there should be transparency around a number of things that we're talking about today. And, even like, okay, there's a story out about how they're going to court to protect the number of GEM subscribers they have, right? Like, what is it, 12?
Big secret. Big secret.
Why is that a big secret? The only reason I would think that they would want to keep that secret is because it's probably pretty embarrassing, right?
All right.
So, but yeah, that is kind of the MO of like the comms department there, is to basically say nothing when it comes to these situations.
Okay.
There's a strategy that seems to be really working.
I want to talk next about political balance.
Yeah.
Because
this is a big one.
The CBC, people often say that it's got a liberal bias. So let me just start there. Do you think the CBC has a liberal bias?
I think that the CBC, when I used to grow up and watch Knowlton Nash, folks remember who Knowlton Nash is? That's how old I am. He predated Peter Mansbridge. I felt like the CBC was a place that brought people in this country together. I've written an op-ed. It's on the app right now. You can find it there. And basically what I say is, like, I remember sitting on the living room floor with my dad watching Hockey Night in Canada and then watching the National. It was never this polarizing issue. Have they become too attached to one ideology? Well, I will let others make their own decisions on that. I've clearly resigned. But I'm not like I am also, and you know me for a long time. I'm not like some kind of alt-right guy. I'm just from Alberta
But
and
even
have
if
a
you
different
were,
perspective on things and wanted to have balance and wanted to make sure that, like, there was a construction worker. We were walking yesterday, right? That came up to us and he said, "Thank you for doing what you're doing." I want to make sure that guy is heard. I want to make sure, somebody in Moose Jaw is heard, and their views are represented as much as folks in Montreal to Toronto, right?
Okay. But during your show, during Canada Tonight, you were subject to a number of protocols that other people weren't.
Oh, the protocols.
Right? And that speaks to some of the workplace issues that we had talked about, like that, that small number of people who controlled that area, okay?
Yeah.
So you were subject to those protocols, and they were sort of weaponized to create a political imbalance.
That's your opinion, by the way, right? That they were weaponized, right? Because CBC will dispute that they were weaponized. But let me give you the context of these protocols.
Sure.
There was an incident that predated my time on Canada Tonight, where there was a Conservative MP who a particular host wanted to have on their program, which was in the afternoon. So they were in touch somehow, and I guess there was something going on with Michael Chong. I probably should remember what it was, but it kind of blurs out right now. But there was something significant going on, and it was a news story. And he left Parliament Hill, walked across the street, was ready to do the interview, ready to go upstairs and be mic'd up. And then the host was told, no, can't go on, allegedly. It's what I was told, right? This is what I was told. Allegedly. The host was told, no, can't go on your show. Only has to go on this one. That's it. So they left and they went across the street, or down the street, and they went to CTV and did the interview there. So that's why these protocols were set up, to ensure that there was coordination around, who would go where, right? Because God forbid somebody else do an interview with a politician, because we have to have 3 people or 2 people do all of the interviews, because their lens on things is a lot better than my lens, because my lived experience doesn't matter and my perspective doesn't matter in terms of interviewing some of these folks.
You're a 2-hour primetime show every night.
Yeah.
To think that you don't talk about politics or to politicians or about those issues is a little backwards.
Well, I mean, it's also honestly, Carmen, we're talking about it right now, and I'm like, this all seems like it's common sense, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're in there, they make you feel like you're insane for saying this. I'm like, I've been in meetings where
the kids call that gaslighting.
Yeah, gaslighting. Yeah, that's essentially what it was, right? I'd be in these meetings where I was trying to explain, well, no, but you don't need to have politicians on. I was like, you don't really need to cover politics. I'm like, do you watch the news? Half the fucking news is politics. Yeah, sometimes a key newsmaker is a politician. And sometimes we need to be able to interview a politician about a story.
Yeah.
Right?
So, okay, you were not a good obedient boy. You did not listen. You felt that you want... I want to talk about a couple instances. The first one is with Melissa Lantsman, who's a Conservative MP.
Deputy leader
Currently. So tell us what happened with her.
So Melissa, just for context, I've known Melissa since she was in Doug Ford's. I think she was on Doug Ford's campaign, weren't you,
Yeah,
at CP24 at the time?
She was in the war room, I think.
Yeah, she was in the war room or something like that. But she's been a political staffer, and then she ran. And anyway, she's now the deputy leader and was at that time. And I think they were going to have like a caucus retreat or something like that. I think that anyway, there was a bunch of issues. We wanted to talk to the deputy leader. And this was very early on in the show. Like I'm talking like the first or second week. I'd have to look back at the timeline to tell you the exact date, but it was like the first or second week of the show. And we wanted to have her on. But because of these protocols, I was not able ever to pick up the phone and say, hey, Miss Lantsman's flack, would you have the deputy leader on the show tonight, right? Because that would get me in trouble, and again, I would get disciplined. So the Conservative Party came to us and said, Melissa Lantsman is available. Can you do an interview? It's 6 o'clock, just to get into the weeds a little bit more here. It's 6 o'clock. I'm in the studio, right? So I'm trying to deal with this. I'm like, yeah, we want that. So I forward off that email because I'm petrified now that, oh my God, we're going to have a politician and a conservative politician, which the other shows weren't able to get on our program. But because I had this fear factor, I sent the note basically to management to be like, this is what's going on. And we had her on. It was, I think, the right editorial decision. Clearly, it was the wrong decision for my career. Because I got disciplined for that after, or actually threatened with discipline. I mean, I got a whole letter, reading me the riot act, and they coupled that with an American commentator that had called me and wanted to come on the show, and also they had to put in a liberal because I had a liberal guest on. They're like, oh, and you had a liberal on too. But really, it was about the fact that I had Lantsman on, and others weren't happy about that.
Yeah, and this isn't going to be the first time you get in trouble for trying to have conservative politicians or voices on your program.
Yeah, and I had to apologize, by the way, for that. Like I was told you should apologize to the Ottawa Bureau for what you did.
Oh,
How
God forbid
dare you didn't follow the
asked.
protocols?
Yeah.
Right? So I had to send this like apologetic email where I was like, I'm so sorry I didn't follow the protocols.
And this happened again pretty early on when you were contacted by a prominent American.
Tucker Carlson called me.
Okay, Tucker. Let's just
Tucker Carlson called me, and by the way, he's coming on this show, and I'm supposed to go on his show to talk about all this stuff. And I don't know Tucker Carlson. Like I didn't have his like phone number in my phone or anything like that. My phone rang one day, and it was Tucker Carlson, and he said, "I watched your intersection panel. I'm up here in Canada. I like the intersection panel. I'm going to interview Danielle Smith for this fireside chat, the Premier of Alberta, and I'd like to come on the show." And I thought, well, that's actually there's news value to it because he's interviewing Danielle Smith. He's in Canada. There were news stories about it. Like, why not do an interview with Tucker Carlson? However, I got in trouble for reaching out to an American commentator without telling people. I didn't reach out to him. Mm-hmm. And I was also told, and CBC probably will say, no, that never happened. I was told that he's banned from the network. And then I was pulled into a meeting, basically, and I was like, well, why? And they're like, well, he's a white nationalist. I'm like, I don't necessarily know if that's the case.
Who else is banned on the network?
Well, that's the thing, right? There were a lot of people banned on my show.
Okay, in a different way, meaning you weren't allowed to
people.
ask
Listen,
them.
I had a reporter call me the other day who was, and will remain nameless because we're good friends, but like was in like one of these editorial meetings, and they were telling me like they wanted to have somebody on a particular issue, and like they were told like that person's not allowed on, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know how that decision is made. How like they're actually banning people from coming on now.
And you kind of pointed out how silly this all was, because if you had wanted to ask,
well, they pulled me into a boardroom. I'll tell you what happened, right? They pulled me. These two executives that are still there They pulled me into a boardroom. I was like on a Thursday, I had her on, and Friday I was in a boardroom. Yanked into this meeting where they're like, you did this, you did that, you called this person, da 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 da. You had, you didn't follow the protocols, and we're pulling you off the air today. And I'm like looking at them, and I'm like, this is the fucking brain trust that is running this network, that they think having like me off the air the day after I have a conservative, which was one of the very few times a conservative prominent one came on the network, would look good optics wise. But this never even occurred to them. And I said, that's probably not a good look, guys. You probably want to leave the room and reconsider that. And they did, and then they came back and they're like, okay, yeah, you can do the show. But I mean, again, it goes back to that initial conversation where I was threatened to be pulled off the backfill, right? That these were the constant threats that I was experiencing.
Yeah, and so you continue to push back, and
Yeah.
you presented this scenario, which we have a clip of, to your boss, where if the leader, the conservative
Oh
leader,
yeah, right.
wanted to come on your program, what would happen?
Well, yeah, I
then?
said it would. If Pierre Poilievre wanted to come on Canada Tonight, what would be the case?
And this is just how ridiculous it's gotten. So we'll listen to that
Okay,
clip.
let's take a listen. So I keep saying this hypothetical situation where they approach us with an interview.
And the answer is always, I will connect you with my friends at Power and Politics because it is our premier politics show.
And they say, sorry, we don't want to do the interview.
You've done your part. You are looking out for CBC News because you understand, may not agree with, but understand that's the approach we've taken for now.
Okay. I had been trying to communicate this repeatedly, right? Because were there liberals on? Yeah. Were there NDP folks on the network? Yes. Folks from the Green Party? Yes. Did we have a robust level of conservative MPs on the network? No, we didn't, because the conservatives had made the decision not to go on certain programs because their view of things was that those hosts weren't fair. Mm-hmm. Now, people can make their own decisions as to whether or not that is the case. And what I said to them, and I'm going to read you part of this email that I sent to like the people that make these decisions. I said, the Conservative Party can do that. That's fine. Like if they want to do that, yeah, if they're being assholes about the fact that they don't want to go on this show, they can do that. Political parties do that. But like we have an obligation to have balance on the network. And so if they don't want to go on that show, but they'll come on this show, we should allow that to happen. Why can't they get interviews with conservatives?
Well, you know why.
I know why.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the decision of the CBC has been instead to silence.
But we also have decided not to let a political party dictate how they show up.
To what end?
Well, that's the decisions that we have to make as managers.
Right. So how's this going to play out during the election?
That's for us to figure out, isn't it?
It is. And so you ragging the puck until the like.
So Travis, I get you don't agree with our decisions. You don't agree with our approach. Okay.
I said Section 11 of the Broadcasting Act, because I'm a nerd, states that CBC should serve to enrich and strengthen the culture, political, and social fabric of the country, and that equitable time be given to political parties and candidates. Unlike other programmings, similar programs on other networks, X show has been unable to secure conservative voices on a regular basis for one reason or another. For months, the Parliamentary Bureau has been allowed to act as a gatekeeper for key political voices. This has essentially culminated in lines being drawn in the sand in what amounts to a game of chicken with the Conservatives, because that's what it was. Political parties make their own communications decisions, and the reality is they cherry pick all the time. As the public broadcaster, we have not only an obligation, but a duty to serve the public. This means rising above internal silos that limit political voices. And I said as well, if this protocol, and this goes back to the transparency and secrecy around some of this stuff, if this protocol has been in place for months, why has it not been communicated in full writing and transparency to the entire network? Why is this an internal policy that is not communicated to the public? I understand that folks might have different views on the situation, but I urge you to consider the points I've raised, because right now I feel we are doing a disservice to the public. Because we were doing a disservice to the public, from my opinion, because we weren't, and we're going into an election period here, right? Like,
And
you
what-
need
so-
to have balance.
Did they respond?
There was not a response to that. To that
Like
specific-
many
I mean,
of
I
your
would send a
emails,
lot of emails, right?
You send a lot of emails and you get no responses.
But I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, I was raising some core issues here, right?
Right.
Like, this again is like really about serving the public, about our ability to do our job. Like, as I said there, I don't want to be in these meetings all the time. I want to be focused on what the news of the day is. But because you've put me in a cage, I can't even fucking do my job properly.
Yeah, just to put the final point on these meetings that you were hauled into, there's one more disciplinary meeting
Yeah.
that you were a part of that dealt with these protocols, and this is clip number 4.
Well, I think this is from the same disciplinary process around the Tait stuff, but I think we were talking about the protocols. I think that's the clip. Let's listen.
It's a conversation.
It's not a conversation.
It's
Not
not
once have they given permission to us. Not once in every single time we have gone to them, we have not gotten permission. Please, Massa, may I have this guest on?
Had this conversation before, but it is not permission. It is a conversation between the 2 executive producers who make that call. Travis interprets that as permission, and I have tried to explain that it's a conversation between the executive producers of the show.
So then why has it not once resulted in a guest being allowed to come on the program?
I don't think that's true.
That is
in
true.
terms of not once. So, but I don't want to get into.
Sure. I mean, we can continue. I mean, I'm sure you're going to forensically go through every single point I've made and dismiss it and try to justify it. So I will listen to that, because there just doesn't seem to be any kind of like, I have just gone through and told you my experience and how I am feeling on this program. And now I feel like you're just going to go through and again dismiss everything that I'm saying. So I mean, we can continue, and I'll just sit here and listen to it.
Yeah.
But like,
Listen, I want to say I'm not dismissing your feeling and how I don't want to dismiss how you're feeling. Okay, that is completely valid and fair. And
But-
I have to disagree with some of the interpretations of the situations.
I don't know if there's
I don't want to deny your feelings about it and the impact on you. That is very real. But to be fair to the time, and like, we have had these discussions before, Travis, and I hear you. I don't want to.
Does it not matter that I feel like a token on this program, like a token host?
It does
Like,
matter
that should
if
be
you feel
really
that way.
concerning to CBC management.
I am very concerned you feel that way, Travis. But I'm also concerned because I'm also responsible for many other people, because some of the things you're saying impact them and how they work. So I need to be fair to everyone and to be fair to facts. I am saying that your feelings are absolutely valid, and it does concern me. So if it's okay, I do want to talk about the desired outcomes, because I did hear you clearly at the very end, which to me is the most important part, is that you and your doctors feel that this is not healthy for you.
Yeah,
That's
I want to go back to. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think you're changing your position on any of these things. I don't think the panels are coming back. I don't think that we're going to be allowed to have more freedom to actually operate as a a robust primetime show. I don't think that my voice is going to be empowered. So in the absence of any changes that actually make a substantial difference to the day-to-day of the way that this program operates, then yeah, it doesn't feel to me like it's going to be a situation that resolves itself anytime soon. And it didn't resolve itself, Carmen, did it?
No, you're still an employee.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay, I want to pick up on something I heard in that clip, and that's the idea that you felt.
Do you see the level of bullshit though that's been going on with
It also sounds like management 101. I'm going to acknowledge his feelings.
I mean, acknowledge.
I'll
let me acknowledge
you.
your feelings, but then basically say that I don't care about your feelings, and I'm gonna like shit all over them. And guess what? There are other hosts that want the yes that you were able to get. So
Yeah,
you know.
I just want to pick up on something.
Again, my interpretation of
I want to pick up on something that you said
these
in that
allegations
clip.
have not been proven in court.
And that's
Yeah.
that you felt like a token. And that leads us to our final topic, which
Yeah.
is diversity. So, Canada Tonight, you were its what host?
Third host.
Third host.
Third host.
And they were all previously visible minorities,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You said in one of the clips you felt like a token. Why did you say that?
Because, and this is the thing, I you know what? People are like, this guy's an idiot. Of course that's what he was. I never actually thought that was... It never entered my mind because my mind doesn't go to that, right? I thought I was being hired for my brain. I thought I was being hired to actually do what they laid out in the job description. I didn't think I was being hired to be the little brown boy that filled 7 to 9 with filler content.
But why did, like...
That wasn't actually able to have a voice and a show
Right.
and a robust show like others were able to. But that's what it was, right? And I think that, like, they quickly realized that I didn't necessarily think that the way everybody else thought, and I had different perspectives on things, and I wanted to bring some unique voices to the table and the conversation, and boy, oh boy, that went over like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, and that wasn't only reflected in how you felt as a host, but also sometimes, according to you and your opinion, it would happen on your panels and how you compensated people or invited
Oh, this
guests.
is about the money. Can I just say something? Yeah, I'll tell you about that afterwards. But yeah, on the money stuff, right? Like, yeah, I mentioned earlier that our panel segment wasn't fully funded. So what would happen is that you'd have a situation where there's 3 panelists, right? And these panelists are compensated on, other shows, that might have been before mine, but weren't fully compensated on this one. So like 1 person would get paid or 2 people would get paid, but I think we had budget for something like 3 people a week. So we had a situation once where there was a prominent black journalist who would come on the show and then ask for payment. And then management basically said, we should consider whether or not we book this guest again. I'm like, so, like, how do we pick who we're going to pay? Like, they talk about, this is the thing about them, right? They talk a big game publicly about diversity, equity, inclusion, right? It's all about that. When it comes to their own house, my opinion is they're actually not doing any of these things that they publicly profess, right? And also, when it comes to diversity, it should be of thought as well. It's not just of skin color, it's of thought as well. I sent an email to the DEI department, which I realized was useless, to ask for like an investigation. I have mail track, so I realized that email was open once and then closed, never looked at again, right? But this is the thing that they do. It's performative diversity. When I was on Marketplace, I had a producer pull me into a room that, had some very big concerns about a form that we had to fill out. We were doing a story on, I think it was inflation. Might have been another story. I think it was on inflation, right? And I had no idea that these guys had to do these forms. There's a form where you have to fill out if somebody is like their race. The people that you interview, right?
Oh, you're filling it out
The
on their
producers
behalf.
are filling this out on a couple of programs on CBC, like to do tracking, right? Is the person black? Are they Asian? Are they whatever, right? Are they gay? Are they bisexual? Are they asexual? And on and on and on. I'm like, I don't know who somebody slept with if I did a 30-second interview about the cost of bread. Sorry, I didn't actually ask that. So I was concerned about this fucking ridiculous form that they had, basically, again, tokenizing people. And I went to management, senior management. I said, this form is problematic, right? Like, these metrics that you're collecting aren't valuable at all. But again, it was performative, right? It's like, well, look, we interviewed somebody about bread who seemed asexual. He didn't seem like he had sex at all on his mind. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Really? So if they want to do this, if they want to put out CBC is, the most diverse network ever we have, we have one of these and we have one of these and we have one of these. Actually do it behind the scenes. Don't just say it publicly. Don't just use it as a facade.
So ultimately, you were removed from the show.
I wonder why. Yeah, I was removed from the show, and I mean, listen, right? Like, I think they probably bit off a little bit more than they could chew with me. But if they looked at any of my coverage, like at Queen's Park and stuff like that, I've never been one to shy away from like actually standing in what I believe. And these were principles that I fundamentally still believe to this day when it comes to journalism. After this episode, I mean, I don't even know if there, but I'm taking the journalism hat off. I've done this for 25 years, right? 20 plus years. The 5 we can debate. But this was my life. This was my identity. I was a journalist, right? But what happened to me over the past year or so has like shaken me to the core. And I'm like, if this is what this business is now, fuck it. I'm out. Tap out.
Okay. You're tapping out, but before you tap out, I want to just wrap this all into a big bow for people who are listening. Why does this all matter, right? Because your story is interesting.
Yeah.
There are a lot of components to it, but at the basic level, the CBC is a publicly funded institution with taxpayer dollars. Therefore, it is accountable, right, for how they spend their money. They're supposed to be transparent, and we're supposed to hold them to a journalistic standard.
You can hear, like, I'm sure it's coming through when you guys watch this episode, the level of, like, frustration and, like, this is, I mean, it's all kind of annoying to talk about again, but I'm doing it, like, because I actually, and I vacillate. I actually believe in what the CBC was set up to be, right? I don't believe in what it's become. But I believe in the principle of why it was set up. And this country is vast. We have very small communities where the only game in town is the CBC, right? And so, I understand that we kind of need to, don't know, I want to say fix it. I don't know if it's fixable, though. It has gone so far beyond where it should be in terms of some of this stuff. I did this interview with Peter Mansbridge at the beginning of my show, and he said some of these same, which they also did not like, by the way. I had some, from my perspective, from my recollection, I had some upturned noses that I brought Peter Mansbridge in because he was critical. He was critical of Tait, and he was also critical of the way the CBC was being run. And he said that they're losing trust with Canadians. There's not a rush to the barricades, I think the quote was, to defend the CBC anymore. And there's not. And I think fundamentally, the executives that are listening to this, the folks that are in the boardroom right now figuring out whether or not they're going to sue Can't Be Censored and Travis Dhanraj, or what statement they're going to put out when the media asks about this. They need to stop concentrating on that and recognize that there is a problem, that there are Canadians, a large proportion of Canadians losing trust in this institution. And until you recognize that there is a problem, you cannot start to deal with it. And really, they really have to deal with this, because if we want to get the CBC back to a place where it was a decade ago, is it possible? I don't know, but they gotta start like now, and that means like we need some oversight here in terms of what's going on.
Yeah, and if we're
But it makes me sad, Carmen. It does make me sad.
It makes me sad too as a journalist. And I know there are still a lot of journalists out there who are still doing great work, believe in the principles of journalism. And this isn't about that, right? It's not about those people that do that work. It's about the.
Oh, yeah. There's still some fantastic people at CBC.
Yeah.
I mean, they call me secretly sometimes. But yeah, there still are, right? But I mean, and it also, I think, goes to the state of the media industry in general right now, that there is this level of distrust in the mainstream media. And as opposed to just diminishing that view, we should be looking at the core reasons as to why that is the case, and figuring out the root issues. And if my story does anything, and I hope you guys will support this platform, by the way, because this is my new gig. And I think I have a voice right now. I'd like to increase that voice, because until people come out and actually say what's going on, all of this stuff is not seen.
Yeah.
Right? People can think that it's going on, but it's not. And they will say that's not true. None of this is true.
Yeah. And for transparency's sake, we should say we've framed the show and we've spoken on this program, this episode, in certain language because you are in the midst of a lawsuit.
Of a
claim.
I filed a complaint with the Human Rights Commission, and there's been coverage of it. But basically, I have said that I was used as a token. Coming to that realization was a tough one, right? Because I was like, oh, that's what they want me for. And they didn't get the brown one that they thought they were going to get. They got one that was kind of feisty and was standing up for journalism. And really, journalism at the end of the day should be something that is core to democracy, right? And when that starts to fall apart, we got problems.
Okay, where we're not going to have problems is on this new program, this new platform that we're building. No problems at all, no controversy. We're not going to do anything crazy.
If you guys have listened to the whole episode, thank you for making it all the way to the end. But yeah, Carmen is right. Like, basically, we're not just going to talk about the CBC. We wanted to get that shit out of the way so we could move on to other content. Because do you want to tell them what the platform's about?
Yeah, it's about exactly what Travis is pushing back against. So Can't Be Censored is going to talk to interesting people, interesting topics.
Controversial people sometimes as well.
Things you might not hear that you won't hear in mainstream media.
Yeah,
and we want to focus on things that we want to talk about. It's going to be a long-form conversation, so lots of time for context, for nuance, for deep discussions and deep dives into really interesting people and things.
Yeah, I didn't think I would have much to say on this episode, but it's been long form, has it not? But yeah, we are going to have conversations with people that actually spark controversy, but we're having folks on from all sides of the political spectrum. That's actually our intent. We'll see if folks want to come on from all sides of the political spectrum, but it's an opportunity not to just cancel people, not to censor people, to listen to people and hear them out. And you guys are smart enough to make your decision on that. We're not going to make that decision for you.
Yeah.
So
thanks for joining us. Welcome to Can't Be Censored.
Support us now. See you later, guys.